Have you ever wondered why, throughout all the years of Gunsmoke, Sheriff Matt Dillon, played by James Arness, never kissed Miss Kitty? This mystery has always intrigued fans and continues to spark heated debates to this day. However, the truth behind this choice goes far beyond just a script decision or lack of chemistry between the characters. In this video, we will finally uncover the deep and controversial reasons that led James Arness to make this unexpected decision. Over the years, there has been speculation about a possible silent rivalry between Arness and Amanda Blake, the actress who played Miss Kitty. Others believe that behind-the-scenes interference, contractual issues, and even studio pressures played a role, with the studio preferring an unconsummated relationship between the two to keep viewers engaged. But are these explanations really everything that happened behind the scenes of Gunsmoke? Or is there something more, something deeply personal, that has never been revealed until now? Before we dive into these explosive details, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support makes all the difference in allowing us to continue bringing videos like this one. And if you want to help even more, consider a super thanks. That way, we can keep delivering exclusive, high-quality content. If you can't, no worries. Just comment below with what surprised you the most about this story. Your participation is key to our growth as a community. Now, get ready for the final revelation, because it's going to change the way you view the relationship between Matt Dillon and Miss Kitty, and maybe even James Arness himself. Don't miss out, because what's coming next is sure to leave Gunsmoke fans speechless. During the 2 decades that Gunsmoke aired, from 1955 to 1975, fans were captivated by the tense, silent relationship between Sheriff Matt Dillon and the charming saloon owner, Miss Kitty. Despite all the subtle chemistry between them, there was never a kiss between the two. That's right. In 20 years of the show, we never saw Matt kiss Miss Kitty. But the most curious and even ironic part of the story is that there was a kiss on Gunsmoke, but it was with another woman. The only time Matt Dillon kissed anyone on the show was in the episode Matt's Love Story, which aired in 1973, during the 19th season. In this episode, Matt is severely injured and is rescued by a woman named Mike Yardner, played by actress Michael Learned, yes, the same one who became famous as the mother in the Waltons. The character nurses Dillon back to health, and a genuine bond formed between them, something rarely portrayed with such emotion on Gunsmoke until then. It was in this context that Matt Dillon shared his only kiss throughout the entire series. The kiss was simple, yet full of meaning, and took many fans by surprise, especially since it wasn't with Miss Kitty, the woman who had seemed to occupy the sheriff's heart and mind for so long. This moment was so significant that it continues to be a topic of discussion among longtime fans of the show. Why was he able to kiss Mike Yardner, a character who appeared in just one episode, but never Kitty, who had been by his side for almost the entire series? The impact of the kiss was so great that it even caused a stir off-screen. Michael Learned later revealed in interviews that James Arness was so impressed by the chemistry between them that he invited her to go out with him in real life after filming. The actress, who was in the process of separating from her husband at the time, politely declined but shared that she found Arness to be a kind, reserved, and extremely professional man. This episode has since gone down in history as one of the most boundary-breaking moments in Gunsmoke's traditional narrative, precisely because it defied the idea that Matt Dillon should remain emotionally inaccessible. During the 2 decades of Gunsmoke, the relationship between Matt Dillon and Miss Kitty became one of the greatest mysteries in television history. What started as a dynamic of respect and partnership slowly transformed into one of the most complex and enigmatic relationships on TV. Although the chemistry between them was clear to fans from the start, the series chose never to take this tension to a kiss, leaving the audience in doubt about what really existed between the sheriff of Dodge City and the saloon owner. What was so intriguing about their interaction wasn't a lack of an explicit romance, but the abundance of unspoken emotions, of desires that were never fully expressed. Instead of a common romance, the relationship between Matt and Kitty developed in a subtle and delicate way. Every exchanged glance, every light gesture, every seemingly innocent word carried immense emotional weight. They never needed a kiss to confirm what they felt because their communication was made through small details, a touch of the hand, a charged look, a word spoken carefully. These moments were more powerful than any traditional romantic scene because they conveyed a deep connection that transcended what was on the surface. The chemistry between the two characters was, in a way, undeniable. Matt Dillon, the solitary sheriff, was a man of duty and responsibility. His emotions were always buried under his unflappable demeanor. Kitty, on the other hand, was an independent woman, a successful businesswoman who didn't need a man to feel complete. Although their lives were very different, there was something that united them, a silent understanding, a mutual trust that was reflected in every interaction between them. The decision never to consummate this romance was undoubtedly a bold choice by the writers. Unlike other series of the time, where couples would fall in love and unite in the end, Gunsmoke defied conventions, keeping the audience in suspense. The lack of a kiss, a clear resolution, created a constant tension that kept viewers on edge. There was something powerful in the idea that the feelings between Matt and Kitty didn't need to be explicitly stated to be felt. The mystery surrounding their relationship only grew as the series progressed, always leaving the audience waiting for something that never happened. As much as fans wanted to see Matt and Kitty together, perhaps the biggest triumph of the series was precisely this absence of resolution. By never allowing the relationship between the two to be formalized, the writers created a tension that lasted 2 decades. This unsaid, this never-fulfilled romance became the driving force of their relationship. The lack of a kiss, far from weakening connection, made it even more intriguing. It was the kind of romance where what mattered wasn't what was shown, but what was hidden between the lines, what was never said but was always there, present, pulsating. The most fascinating part of this choice was that, while the audience longed for a resolution, the writers and the actors knew that if Matt and Kitty gave into romance explicitly, something essential in their dynamic would be lost. Matt Dillon couldn't just be a man in love. He was a sheriff, the guardian of order, someone who couldn't easily give in to his emotions. Kitty also wasn't a woman waiting for a prince. She was a strong, independent, and complex woman. This made their relationship something much deeper and more multifaceted than a simple TV romance. Throughout Gunsmoke, what was built was a relationship of mutual respect, understanding, and an emotional tension so strong that fans never stopped asking, is it going to happen now? But the answer never came. The true magic of the relationship between Matt and Kitty wasn't in the promise of a happy ending, but in the perpetuation of that uncertainty, in the constant exchange of glances and gestures that suggested more than they could ever truly show. By not delivering the romance in a conventional way, Gunsmoke managed to create something that at the time was rare, a genuine love that didn't need to be sealed with a kiss to be real. And in the end, this mystery, this unresolved expectation, is what made the relationship between Matt and Kitty so enduring and memorable. The true essence of their relationship wasn't in what was said or shown, but in what was left of the audience's imagination. And that unspoken secret is what made Gunsmoke stand out as one of the most complex and admired series in television history. What makes the relationship between Matt Dillon and Miss Kitty in Gunsmoke so enigmatic and fascinating isn't what is shown, but rather what remains hidden. Over 2 decades on air, fans of the series followed the growing tension between the two main characters. But curiously, they never saw a kiss, an explicit declaration, or any kind of consummated romantic relationship. For many, this was a mystery. For others, it was a bold and strategic narrative choice. And it is precisely this absence of resolution that became the core of the show. Over 20 seasons, Gunsmoke built a narrative where tension was fueled by what remained unsaid, by repressed desires, and by the silent interactions between the two. Every exchanged glance between Matt and Kitty, every gentle gesture of affection, seemed to speak more than words could express. The audience could sense that there was something more, something real between the two characters, but the script always kept them on the brink of romance without ever fulfilling it. This unconsummated desire created an emotional weight that made every scene between them even more intense. The fact that the series never resolved the relationship between Matt and Kitty is, in fact, a deliberate choice. At a time when television rules were more rigid and moral values prevailed, Gunsmoke knew how to balance the audience's expectations without crossing boundaries. The writers understood that, in a show about law, order, and morality in the Old West, the romance between the sheriff and the saloon owner should remain implied, preserving the integrity of both characters. Matt Dillon was more than just a man in love. He was a figure of authority, the unflappable sheriff of Dodge City, and resolved romance could risk this image. The decision not to consummate the relationship wasn't just a way to avoid a cliched romance. It was a way to maintain the tension and mystery in the air, something that captivated the audience episode after episode. The viewers longed for more, but never got a clear answer. Instead of weakening the narrative with an explicit romance, Gunsmoke strengthened the emotional investment of the viewers by withholding the answer. The series knew, like few others, how to hook its audience with mystery, feeding the collective imagination without ever delivering what everyone wanted to see. Furthermore, this dynamic of non-resolution was directly linked to the spirit of the series and the censorship of the time. In the 1950s and 1960s, television standards required a certain decorum, especially in high viewership programs like Gunsmoke. The show dealt with heavy themes: the Old West, survival, morality, and the fight for justice. And placing an explicit romance between Matt and Kitty could have been interpreted as a transgression against the values the series upheld. Therefore, the absence of a romantic consummation between the two characters was not just a narrative choice, but also a response to the cultural and social limits of the time. What many don't know is that behind the scenes, both James Arness, Matt Dillon, and Amanda Blake, Miss Kitty, were fully aware of the impact of their unresolved relationship. In several interviews, both mentioned how palpable the chemistry between characters was, but they also stated that the true power of their relationship lay in what was never said. The moments of silent understanding, the loaded glances, and the constant exchange of subtle gestures were enough to convey a deep and complex love, without the need for a kiss. Arness even said that the romance between Matt and Kitty was in the pauses, in the silences, in what wasn't expressed in words or exaggerated gestures. The absence of a kiss then became Gunsmoke's very own kiss. Each episode left the audience waiting for something that never happened, but which, in a way, made every interaction between the two characters even more meaningful. Rather than following a predictable and easily consumable path, Gunsmoke kept the mystery alive, preserving the tension that made fans anxious to know, once for all, whether Matt and Kitty would declare their love. And the most impressive part is that the series did this for 20 years, never once yielding to a resolution that would break the magic it had created over time. This strategy of keeping the romance in an eternal state of unresolved potential made Gunsmoke more than just a simple Western drama. It became a show that played with the expectations and frustration of the viewers, maintaining interest in its main characters and emotional dynamics that permeated the plot. In the end, what Gunsmoke did was create one of the most iconic relationships in television history, not because of a consummated romance, but because of the tension of a love that was never allowed to bloom in a conventional way. And perhaps that is what makes it one of the most memorable stories of all time. The relationship between Matt Dillon and Miss Kitty in Gunsmoke was one of the most fascinating in television history, a story filled with unspoken emotions, latent tensions, and above all, a romance that never materialized. For more than 2 decades in the air, Gunsmoke built a plot where the connection between the two protagonists remained in constant tension, but never reached the climax of a kiss or even a declaration of love. However, the true moment of romantic vulnerability for Matt Dillon happened outside the Gunsmoke universe. More specifically, in an episode of the Waltons, where the character played by James Arness finally allowed himself to show the emotional side that had always been repressed in the Old West. This curious moment occurred in the special episode of the Waltons titled The Last Summer 1975, and surprised not only the fans of the series, but also those who had followed Matt Dillon for so many years. In this episode, Arness was invited to play a character named John, who, surprisingly, becomes a romantic interest of Olivia Walton, played by Michael Learned, the matriarch of the Walton family. And it was in this very different setting from Dodge City that Matt Dillon, or rather, Arness' character, had his first significant romantic kiss, something that, by the irony of fate, never happened in Gunsmoke. In Gunsmoke, the romantic tension between Matt Dillon and Miss Kitty was palpable, but the series always kept that relationship on the brink of impossibility. Dillon's character, the sheriff of the town, was always centered around an ideal of control, honor, and morality, traits that the series explored in depth. The figure the sheriff needed to be unshakable and emotionally immune, so he could administer justice in the brutal Old West. Therefore, any explicit romantic involvement with Kitty would have been a deviation from his core identity as the town's leader and protector. While the chemistry between Dylan and Kitty was undeniable, the series never allowed it to come to fruition. Their relationship was like a flame that never touched enough fuel to fully ignite. This kept the audience constantly in suspense. The question was always in the air. Will Matt and Kitty finally get together? But, as in real life, this romance never had a resolution, and that indecision was the true essence of Gunsmoke's narrative. But in the Waltons, the dynamic was completely different. The series focused on a warmer and more familial portrayal of the world, where the characters were more approachable and emotionally accessible. By playing John in the Waltons, James Arness had the opportunity to release Matt Dillon from his emotional shackles. In the context of a softer, more affectionate narrative, he was able to be vulnerable, something his sheriff character could never be in Gunsmoke. The kiss between John and Olivia Walton, therefore, was not just a romantic moment, but also a representation of what Matt Dillon could have been, had he not been forced to remain always firm and resolute. In Gunsmoke, the romance between Matt and Kitty would never have been possible in that way, not just due to the social norms and censorship of the time, but also due to the role Matt played in the story. He was, above all, a man of rigid principles and self-control, and his love for Kitty could never cross certain boundaries without compromising his authority and morality. The kiss in the Waltons was, therefore, a small but powerful moment of liberation. It represented what was, in a sense, missing in Gunsmoke: the opportunity for Matt Dillon to be someone beyond the sheriff, someone who could also love, surrender, and be vulnerable. It was a simple gesture, but one full of meaning, not only for fans of the Waltons, but for all those who had seen Arness as a tough, emotionless sheriff immune to passions and emotional complications. What really stands out in this contrast between the two series is what Gunsmoke did so brilliantly: the creation of constant emotional tension. By keeping the relationship between Matt and Kitty unresolved, the producers allowed the romance to transform into an unfinished legend. The audience was constantly waiting for the moment of conclusion, but it never came. This unspoken became the backbone of the series. Matt Dillon never openly expressed his feelings. He kept his distance, and his relationship with Miss Kitty never crossed the boundaries of what was socially acceptable at the time. Every exchanged glance between them was loaded with meaning, but the series never allowed itself to give the audience what they truly wanted: a kiss, a declaration of love, a definitive resolution. But in the softest and most intimate moment of the Waltons, Matt Dillon finally surrendered to the possibility of a genuine romance. In an episode that strayed from the rules and morality of the Old West, he was finally able to show what had always been necessary, but never allowed in Gunsmoke: the love and vulnerability of a man. This kiss with Michael learned, then, is much more than a simple exchange of affection in a different series. It is, in a way, a metaphor for what could have been for Matt Dillon, had he not been so tied to his identity as a sheriff. The kiss was what was missing in Gunsmoke for Arness' character to become fully human. In Gunsmoke, he was a man of action. In the Waltons, he was a man of feelings. And while the relationship between Matt and Kitty was never consummated, this moment in the Waltons gives us a glimpse of what their relationship could have been in a less rigid and more open world of romance. In Gunsmoke, this romance could not happen, but in the Waltons, emotional freedom was finally achieved, offering Arness fans a different side of the actor and the character they had loved for so long. In summary, the kiss in the Waltons was a unique moment that not only marked a shift in James Arness' career, but also offered fans a reflection on what never happened, but in some way had always been there, on the verge of happening. This version tries to maintain the focus on the story of the kiss between Matt Dillon and Olivia Walton, while also delving deeper into the nature of the romantic tension that existed in Gunsmoke. I kept the idea that Dillon's relationship with Kitty was never consummated, contrasting it with a moment of emotional liberation in the Waltons. What do you think of this new approach? And so we come to the end of one of television's greatest mysteries. Why did James Arness never kiss Miss Kitty in Gunsmoke? Over the course of more than 20 years, the emotional tension between Matt Dillon and Kitty was carefully built. creating one of the most intense and intriguing dynamics in TV history. The chemistry between the two was undeniable. But the decision by the producers and even the actors themselves to keep the relationship unresolved was a brilliant move that added a unique mystery and depth to the plot. Although many of us hoped to see Matt and Kitty finally give in to that long-awaited romance, the series never gave in to the pressure. This deliberate choice, far from weakening the narrative, was essential to Gunsmoke's lasting success, keeping the audience always eager and immersed in the uncertainty of their relationship. Perhaps the secret was exactly that: what was never said, what always lingered in the air. Now, we would love to hear your opinion. Were you also surprised by Gunsmoke's approach? Or do you have any theories about what could have happened if Matt and Kitty's relationship had been consummated? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Your subscription is crucial for us to keep bringing more content like this to you. Every new subscriber helps the channel grow and reach more people who, like you, love the stories behind great TV series. If you'd like to support the channel even further, a super thanks is always welcome. It helps us continue creating quality videos for you. And before you go, be sure to check out the next video that pops up on the screen. It's filled with fascinating stories, and I'm sure you'll love it. See you in the next video, and thank you for being part of our community.